So that's why when I say, oh, we need 250 people, it sounds like, wow. Well, we have to account for that people are
That
going
don't
to
make it
embrace
on the
that ultra flexibility that
Sure.
Summit provides.
Okay.
So that's kind of a key piece, and
Yeah.
you know, it's different than other employment, you know, in the district where we need people consistent and reliable every day to come to school. Southern could be flexible. Even businesses in the community, they need people every single day. So they thought of subbing as a really great experience.
Yeah, sure.
So that's kind of interesting. It's fun. It's a great way to get community members into our schools and to embrace cultures.
Right. Yeah.
So we got 35 locations, so there's got to be one by your house. So,
Right.
or one that, you know, appeals to you. So.
Right.
But yeah, if you know people, send them our way. I'm good. That's on my favorite topic again. It is. If you work on a Monday and Friday, that's 2 chances you get thrown in your name in the hat, then there's an air pod. So if you're going to last week, oh, okay. Sure. The whole PowerPoint?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a student.
Yes. Right.
Did I get one of those? Can you remember me again? It's the largest responsibility for this. No.
Not lose, unless it's a overwhelming success, then
Okay, you go to the one.
yeah. I hear that the commercial is most every month. That's not bad.
Yeah, lazy, lazy,
Yeah,
eggs.
that's what it is. I go, no.
That one was stood the test of time. We probably did that like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Dug it back out.
When I hear it, I know what that image is going to be like. There's
Thank you. And we're listening back to that.
Oh, it's Todd's is my favorite gum. Not yet, Lemon.
Okay, cheers, we'll go. One over the outside.
Call the meeting back to order. Before we start, I just would like to tell the public that we are all thinking about the families at Lincoln whose sons were in the accident last evening, and that there was an email sent out by Dr. Rader, the principal at the high school, providing counseling and other resources for families and students who were affected by this tragedy. Thank you. We move on to our board work session. Jamie Knoll is sitting in for Dr. Maher. He is traveling for the district today, and take over.
And I will agree with you. One of the hardest things as a building principal to ever work through is the loss of a student within the student body. And so the care that goes into that, and the care that goes for the students and the families that are involved, and just an incredibly tough time that our counseling department does a great job working with the students and caring for each one of us. So yes, thank you. Remembering that and being able to report, because it's the most important thing we do is care for the students. So there are two board work session topics here this afternoon, one of which you maybe have heard commercials on and at different posters and signs that you've seen throughout the community, and a big part of that is the substitutes that we work with and work in our buildings each and every day. This is an area that obviously is a great need of our school district, is having substitutes within our buildings to be able to replace those teachers when teachers are either ill or gone, or at other meetings that we have called throughout the school year. So Becky Dorman, who is the head of our Human Resources Department, spends a significant amount of time and effort in working with our substitute pool and being able to recruit that group in to work. So she has a lot of very good information for us today to be able to go through and look at, and I think it's been even eye-opening, and just as our group of Human Resources and Administration, to see some of those different statistics and information. So Becky will lead us through that process with the first part of our discussions.
Thank you, Dr. Knoll. Okay. I really call this presentation the soup to nuts of substitute teaching, because it's really a great introduction, a great summary of everything that we have going on with substitute teachers. And I found myself, as I was pulling this together, really having a hard time not going off on a bird walk, because so much of what we get done in our school district has to do with substitute teachers and their availability. As I go through this presentation, if you have any questions, like up on a slide, it probably would work best if you would just ask them at that time versus waiting to the end, because I do have 24 slides to get through, and I want to be able to address your question. And Bev Chase is going to go ahead and put this out on the website under the reports in case you do want to refer back to it later. As we go through a lot of the graphics and artwork you see, I can't take credit for that. This summer we paired with Town Square Media, and they helped us put together some new looks to some eye-catching things, both as in posters and Facebook and social media ads, and then just those, you know, those little annoying ads that you get on your phone that pop up. That's unintentional. So yes, we did create some of those. So I'll talk a little bit more about that as we cruise through here. Topics we're covering today, you can see we're going just about everywhere, from what it takes to be a sub, how we prepare you, and then what are we going to do to address our need of substitute teachers in the district. That billboard probably looks familiar. We had those up for almost 2 months in 8 different locations throughout Sioux Falls. And we had a lot of comments and a lot of applicants indicated on their application that they learned of this subbing opportunity through these billboards. So I think that's something we will definitely keep on the list to do again. Okay, keep in mind some of the artwork is to engage in emotion, make you laugh a little bit, catch your attention. So when it comes to becoming a sub, and there's a sub sandwich there, that is to do just that. Your requirements, first we're looking for individuals with a bachelor's degree. It can be in any area. We also seek out individuals that have an associate's degree or at least 60 credit hours and then a little bit of working experience. Or you can have a high school diploma or GED and 5 years of working experience to be a substitute teacher. If you don't have the 5 years, let's say you're a relatively recent graduate, we have work for you as a substitute education assistant. The path or the sub hiring process, it starts with your online application. Of course, those are 24/7. Once your app comes in, we review substitute teacher apps every day. And we're also looking at we do reference surveys, so applicants have to provide email addresses, and then our application system automatically launches a reference survey. So we gather a little bit of information on our candidates that way. If everything looks good, we go ahead and we email the candidate a tentative offer of employment. That would be pending a criminal background check and then going through our training before they could start. They also get the online employment form. So your W-4, I-9, that type of information, direct deposit, they get that emailed out to them. And then they also receive a link to schedule a time to come in to get their background check done in our HR department, take their ID badge, and to sign up for one of the orientation trainings that Rhonda Iddings covers. And we do those pretty much every Wednesday. So this whole process really could take less than 2 weeks. From the time you fill out your app, get in for your background check, and then get trained. And then once you've gone through the training, you go ahead and you register in your Smart Find Express. That's the system we use to call substitutes, and you start working.
And some of those trainings are paid as well. Is that correct? Or is that more just afterward?
We do pay you to come to your first orientation training, yes. And other trainings we do have are paid. Okay, so I touched a little bit on what is Smart Find Express. The district has been using a software program, some version of it, since 1996 to call substitute teachers. It used to be just strictly calling substitute teachers on the phone. Now subs can log in. You can see here, this sub has logged in, and she was looking for jobs between November 4th and December 23rd. So she's looking to fill in her calendar so she can find what's available, click on the details to see if she's interested, and then sign up and take that job if she wants to and fill up her calendar. There's also an app, so our candidates can do that on the phone. And then in its next release of the app, there's also going to be some texting availability. So when a job comes open, if you've signed up for text alerts, you'll get a text alert. So we're excited about that. We think a lot of our subs will embrace that convenience. Let's talk about substitute teacher pay. In most situations, our substitute teachers earn $110 a day. We do have some priority schools, and by priority, that means to the HR folks is sometimes we have difficulty getting all of their jobs filled for a number of reasons. So we have incentivized subs by an extra $10 a day to serve at those schools. And then if you are a substitute at Bridges, you get $130 a day. There's some extra training that goes into working at Bridges, so we increased the pay because of that extra training. Now, comparing what we look like to other districts, a piece to keep in mind is in Sioux Falls, we're going to need anywhere from 175 to 350 substitutes a day. So our volume is a lot greater. Your opportunity to work every day, if that's what you want to do, that's there. Comparing that to Brandon, I spoke to them not too long ago. They need 15 to 20 subs a day. Harrisburg needs about 35 a day. So definitely volume is quite different. In Harrisburg, you start at $120 a day, and then on day 11, you're at $140, okay? Then down to Sioux City, on day 26 is when you get to jump to 135 days. Sioux City really isn't a competitor of ours. I was just looking for districts, in the area maybe a little larger so we have a comparison. And then at West Central, I believe on the 20th day that you get your 120.
And do you mean consecutive days for like
No.
a long term, or it's just the 20th job that you pick up over the
Cumulative,
course of the school?
yeah,
Okay.
20th job.
Thank you.
In Sioux Falls, if you're doing a long-term sub, let's say you're covering a maternity leave, those types of jobs pay $137 a day. We're going to dive into a little bit about our subs and some stats and learn a little bit more about our sub pool. We do have 550 substitute teachers. Okay? The average age is 45, and about 40% of them have a degree in education. And people typically work for us for about 3 years as a substitute teacher. Here's the breakout of those 553, looking last school year from October through May. And I pick October because that's when things really start rolling in the sub world. It's really not fair to include September. It throws off all my stats. So what we need to have happen is all the subs need to take a big old step to the right. So they're all working more days. So 237 subs work anywhere from 1 to 16 days. So we definitely have people working. We just need to find ways to have them work more because we have the numbers. We just need them to work more. And that was an eye-opening piece as I was pulling together a lot of this information. The 553 average of working 32 days a school year. Okay? That's subbing flexibility is one of the greatest benefits to our candidates or our subs, but one of our biggest hurdles is the flexibility that subbing offers. 72 of our subs are retirees, are former retirees, come from our teaching ranks, and they sub an average of 25 days during the school year. When HR people get together and brainstorm ideas about substitutes, because we do, it's a problem for us all, we talk in terms of fill rates, meaning how close did we get to filling all the sub jobs today? So I've got the past 3 Octobers laid out there, In October of 17, our fill rate was 94.3%. We averaged 208 sub days needed each day. So that meant there were 12 classrooms that went without subs each day in October. Now, that doesn't mean they weren't manned with people. It just means schools get creative and they cover that vacancy. So you can see that our fill rates have dropped a little bit each year. I was just at a consortium meeting with several other school districts, and we're all shooting for 90%. We feel like that's kind of the industry standard, is to hit 90% a day of your jobs filled. So we're real close with that line this year. So we're putting some efforts in place to get over that 90%. Last school year, when we noticed the dip in the fill rates, one of our strategies was to figure out how can we get the subs, the 500 subs that we have, how can we get them to work more? So we surveyed them, figuring we already knew the answer, but we did survey our subs last school year, and 71% reported that we needed to increase our pay. Also offer benefits, provide some additional support, and then increase our substitute appreciation efforts. So to address the pay issue and to further test the pay issue, if you will, we created the Cleveland Pay Pilot, and that ended up supporting the survey results. We increased sub pay at Cleveland from $110 a day to $25 a day. And Cleveland's fill rate went from 81%, and that was the lowest in the district when we picked Cleveland, to 89%, which was very, very close to our district average. So we felt that that was okay, that was a positive response. That 125 might be the right rate, okay? And it was because of this pay pilot, we knew of its success, that we brought on those 5 more schools this year and increased their pay some as well.
What's the benefit look like when you said offer benefits?
Well, from the survey, they wanted health insurance, dental insurance, and retirement. You know, typically when you're looking at a position, that's an additional 33% of the wages of that position. So, but yeah, it's benefits. When you're talking about substitute teachers, you have to look at the other side of the coin, and that's why do you need these substitute teachers? So we had to take a look at our teacher absenteeism. Where are we compared to every other district in the nation? So we did some research on that. Everybody has different, it was a little bit difficult to compare apples to apples, but I think when we focused on sick leave utilization, so that would be personal sick leave and then a sick day taken because maybe you have an ill child or an ill family member, we found that we're doing better than the rest of the nation. Our teachers are out an average of 7.5 days during the school year for illness-related reasons, where the national average is 11 days, according to research from June 2014. And then I found a little bit more research, a little more recent research, where 28% of teachers miss 10 days or more. Ours is 22% miss more than 10 days. And that would be just sickness and family leave. Okay. Another reason why teachers are out of the building has to do with when their administrator or a central office administrator says, I need you here today. We're maybe going to do some curriculum review, we're doing some training, what have you. So that's what this chart shows. The legend, I'll start by explaining what those letters mean. A PABD is a principal authorized building day, and that is the first layer of green down at the bottom. And that would be, you know, each school gets designated days in which they can use them for professional development.
or anything that they need when they need a teacher to do something instead of being in the classroom that day. The next small strip of green is regular duty out of office. So that would be, for instance, if you're a high school teacher and you're taking one of your classes on a field trip, but you need somebody to cover the rest of your classes that day, that would be regular duty out of office. CAA, which is the big section of blue, is central administrator assignment. So when you see IPC is full, sometimes when you stop in and teachers are gathered around tables, that's central administrative assignment. And then the purple, which is the top, is collaboration. So a principal wants to pull a grade level of teachers together for a day or two during the week. They need substitutes to cover that classroom. So that's what that looks like. We're down just a little bit. 18-19 was down just a little bit. We had fewer of those absences. A lot of this ebb and flow goes with what's happening in curriculum, what trainings do we need to have, that type of thing. So now we put the district and central office reasons, combine them with all other absence reasons, the sick leave, the personal days, funeral leave, any reason why you would have to be out of the office. And you can see that it's just right around 15% of the time that a teacher is out of the classroom is because of those principal or district directed days. In 17-18, we needed a total of, that number is 26,321 sub days, and then last year it was 25,836 sub days. And those are teachers, and those would be education assistants, which needed a substitute when they were gone. Okay. So once you become a sub, how do we prep you for being in our classrooms? The first thing that we do outside of your orientation or after you've completed your orientation is some online learning. And it's an 8 to 10 hour course that we pay you to do. We give you a $50 stipend to do it. And it's just an introduction to things that you're going to run into when you're in a classroom. And then when you're done, you're issued a sub-diploma. So it's just a good way for people that have really never been in a classroom other than their own learning experiences to get reintroduced to what school is like today. And we purchased these through the Substitute Teaching Education Division at the University of Utah. Some other prepping that we do is they have a policy review, which Rhonda goes over with them annually. They also undergo school safety training from Bob Ray. That's part of their orientation for all substitutes. And then again, annually, they come in and meet with Bob, so they have the school safety training, the same that our teachers would get. And then based on that survey, they wanted some more information about classroom management and dealing with behaviors. We have our instructional coaches have prepared a 2-hour seminar that they offer 4 times a year for substitutes to come in and be part of their seminar. And then we also have a retired special ed teacher coming in, and she is doing how to be a successful substitute in early special education. And then we also plan to do some classroom technology training using the school. And all of these are paid trainings for our substitutes. I touched on a little bit. We've done some new recruiting this year, and then we also kept doing some of the stuff that was working for us. We have had a lot of success with the online pop-up ads that come on your phone when you're searching for something else. As a matter of fact, right now we're doing 5% better than what the industry, or 5 times as good as better than the industry says we should be doing. Which has resulted in 20% more applications than we had last year at this time. And there's every other month we have new ads that come up just to keep them fresh. That third bullet talks about a site conversion, and that would be, we know the people that get the pop-up ads on their phones, and we know if they clicked on those ads or if they didn't. But then again, we also know if they went and they searched later on their phone, this is all schools. And that's what a site conversion is. So it's pretty exciting. They might not click on our ad, but they are still interested, hours later, and they'll Google us or look us up. So we did some more radio ads. They're still playing. They'll be playing here through most of November. We were able to do a radio feature where we were interviewed on the radio, so that was kind of fun. And then also, every time something happens, we are in the media as far as substitute teachers. Have done a lot of media stories this fall, so this board presentation will probably help with that as well. We always get more applicants as soon as people start talking about us or they see a little something in the paper or on TV. So this is a look at how these recruitment efforts shake out this year with our current applicants. And this data is from the middle of October. I started pulling it. So we offered 290 sub-teaching jobs. From there, 162 signed up for training. And then after the training, 128 registered in the Smart Find Express to start taking jobs. So what that shakes out to is 44% of the people that we hired actually came to work. So that's a piece that we need to continue working on, is to keep people engaged through the whole process. It makes a little bit more sense when we start seeing who we hired. For instance, 28% of the 290 had come from the field of education. So it's very possible that we've hired them to be education assistants, or another district has grabbed them to fill a position. The unemployed number surprises me. 26% of the people weren't employed and were looking for employment. And we do get calls, almost every day is, I won't be on the list, I got a job, so someplace else. So that is still, we're still that gap filler for employment, so that causes some turnaround. Sales, healthcare, retail, childcare, and then the other is, anything you can possibly imagine with these professions that come to us. So that's really great. As we wrap this up, there's some directions that we want to go that we're really focusing on that we think are going to help the whole substitute teacher programming in general. And the first piece is sharing what we know with our own administration. So right here we have just a snippet of what October 14th through October 19th looked like in terms of who was gone or not, why people were gone. So if you see where that red arrow was, on Monday, October 14th, there were 44 unfilled positions. That's a big number for us. So when we send this out to administrators, they can see how that 44 came to be. Helps them to kind of get a big picture. I had a lot of comments from administrators saying, oh, I never realized this, or can I share this with my teachers because they'll want to see this? I'm like, sure. So I plan to send out a couple of these each month just to keep principals engaged in the absenteeism and substitute need of the district.
Can you get this down to the building level?
I can, I just haven't gone there yet. It would be fun to do some challenges or something like that, though, wouldn't it? Here we've got kind of a fun thing, a goodwill, make you feel good about being a sub. This is through October and November. If you sub on a Monday and a Friday, 2 times you get your name thrown in the hat for a drawing on that next Wednesday to get Apple AirPod. So we've given out 2 of those so far. That was a lot of fun. We launched this right before I went with the other central administrators and Dr. Maher to our consortium meeting in Millard, and we had 2 other school districts that took this and even wanted the graphic. They wanted it without the logo. And I'm like, well, you can take it. You have to figure out how to get the logo off there. It's just it just created a lot of chatter and fun about being a substitute. So we hope to do more things like this. Another key piece is we know we have to do some process changing to keep those 290 applicants that whittled down to 126, to keep them engaged in the process. So sending phone calls, email, and text, just being really intentional about reminding people how important we need them or how important their work is. We also are working on setting sub-goals and with rewards for increasing the frequency of people working. We have enough substitutes. We just need those that are working for us to work more. And then we're also creating district cards for district staff. I plan to hand out to administrators so whenever they find they're in a conversation with somebody that's got some time on their hands or asking questions about subbing, they can say, here, have you thought about this? Or, you know, we'd love to have you here at Roosevelt, even if it's twice a month, you know, just kind of conversation starters or just something to give them to think about substitute teaching. And the last area of focus, I'm calling this a success story, but I really have to give credit to Dr. Nold and USD. This is the Prepared to Teach pilot at Rosa Parks Elementary. This year we have 6 student teachers that are in year-long placements at Rosa Parks. After they were in their student teaching role for about 6 weeks, they are then set free to sub at Rosa Parks as needed, going to other classrooms. And they also get paid as a substitute teacher by the district because they're covering a need that we do have. And they also are receiving a stipend from USD through a grant that USD receives for this program. The feedback that I've gotten from the principal is overwhelmingly positive. There are some things that we are going to tweak if we do this again next year, but it seems to be working out nicely in the schools. One of the key pieces that her student teachers / substitute teachers have commented on is they can get like immediate feedback when they go into a different classroom and experience a different environment on, you know, what they could have done differently, or they come back the next day and talk to their mentor teacher and said, you know, I experienced this behavior, how can I address this next time? So they really have that support that they need, so they're going to really flourish in their role. Yes.
This, I just think is awesome that USD and the district has reached this. Is this going to be able to be replicated by other schools like USF or Augie and just the pieces there in Sioux Falls?
Well, I do know that USD came to us. Is that correct, Dr. Noel?
They presented that because one of the difficulties in a year-long placement, I think it's the best process because Dr. Wilson confessed that in the elementary setting, because the substitute or the student teacher gets to experience a full year. Now, difficulty in that is when you go through student teaching, you usually will give up your job or a job that you may have, so there's a financial hardship in that. So for them to do the stipend and us to be able to supplement that with, you know, 4, 5, 6 days of substitute teaching, so it can be $500-600 of pay or more, plus the stipend that they get right away to start with. That helped those individuals to be able to pay the bills and things throughout the year. Now, most of the other schools are still doing the semester placement, so we're having some conversations on that. Can they and will they be willing to allow their substitute teachers to sub? Because some have still a stance that they cannot sub. So we need to work through some of those processes. The first part was to go through this to make sure to see that it worked and it was beneficial, and it has helped cover subs in that building. So I think that helps us in a dialogue with the other schools, universities, to be able to say, hey, this is working, this is something that will help us and benefit your students.
One of the other comments I got from Krista Mahachek, the principal, is just the student attitudes toward the student teacher / sub. They see them as teachers because they're in the building all of the time, so that sub behavior isn't there as much.
I would think too, if I were a student teacher, what a valuable opportunity to be able to say, I did my 6 weeks in kindergarten, but I also got a chance to spend 6 or 7 days throughout the rest of that year in multiple different grades. And I realized I love this age and this age is not my favorite or whatever, so that when you're applying for jobs, you are going to pick a job that's more aligned to your skills and your interests and your passion because you've been there and done that, versus thinking, I don't know, well, once I had a niece that was a 3rd grader and I thought she was really cool. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like sometimes what are you basing your decision off of? But having actually been into the classroom and worked with students of that age and understanding the expectations and what they are capable of doing can really help you to have a better placement when you're done and actually looking for your full-time job. And hopefully we retain a lot of these teachers too that sub for us, and they realize that the Sioux Falls School District is where they want to be and apply and get hired as well.
Absolutely. Yep. This is a great step. It solves a lot of issues, creates some solutions, definitely. So. Well, that is the end of my substitute teacher presentation. Do we have any questions? Yes.
So I will go back to the issue or the question, benefits. We all think the substitute benefits, but I'm thinking bigger picture. Like, so we have employees in our district, if they work 3 days out of 5, they can qualify for benefits. Is that correct? It's 50. Okay. And so if there would be a way for substitutes, if we could contract with them, if they did that many days per pay period, come up with a formula. I'm wondering if that would be something to solve this issue that would do that, because I'm sure there's some buildings that have a substitute every day just because of the size of the staff in them. And to have them specifically focusing on that building, I just think it would overcome that other issue of substitute behavior, as well as they know the systems in that building. And so there's that, not that learning curve every day when they come into the building. So I think that would be maybe something worth exploring.
Are you tapping into the retired? It's 2%, right?
The 2% of our applicants were retired. Right now we have 72 former Sioux Falls School District teachers in that pool. And we do see a lot of times our retirees will come back and they'll work for their school or their friends.
And only their school.
For a year or two, and then they're ready to really retire.
And we'll still need those.
Absolutely.
Long term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Becky, thank you for the presentation, and that too is a common thread that I heard with you, is the how do we incentivize is the overarching goal, and within that, how do we get those working for us currently to work more? So that again speaks to the incentivization. And so then to Cynthia's part, are there benefits that we can extend to substitutes? What, in addition to the pilot school that you used when you increased pay from 110 to 125, and that did increase the fill gap from 81% to 89%. So, and then you extended that to 5 more schools, and there again, it sounds like that research bore its fruit in that those fill gaps were made. So, if we want to look at that bigger picture, I'm sensing from you it is something of importance of filling the substitute positions. And so maybe how we could look at the incentivization and really focus in on that. We've done that with pay, but what else could we extend?
Back to that slide, that's a question. Was that a survey that you did? That's the substitute said we would work more if?
Yes, that was we did a survey, I think, it was last winter. We did a survey.
They only get benefits if they work,
Subs don't get
They don't get any.
Okay. So what was the 50%?
That's if they work 20 hours.
Okay. Okay. So you have to be a 25 FTE of that.
So what would that look like if you were a sub that put in however many hours that would equate similar to what an EA would equate, how benefits could be extended, and then what that would do though to the overall budget. That's a bigger piece, and what is the budgeting shortfall when we do not have gaps that are filled in the classroom? What does that mean to that building? What type of disruption and what is the value of that? We'd have to compare that to what it means to fill those.
My question would be what would the difference between having a substitute who agrees to work whatever it is, 0.5 FTE, what's the difference between then just hiring them as a 0.5 FTE and saying, you are assigned to these 3 or these 4 or however many that is. Like, you're an elementary person, you have these 4 or 5 elementary schools and you're a 0.5 FTE. What that means is that our expectation is that you are going to fill in and sub for these designated schools that you've been put into for this many days a week or this many days of pay period or whatever that looks like. Because then I think you actually are an employee and you would have all of the rest of the benefits. It's just that in order to do that, you have to commit to be that 0.5 FTE.
Because at this
You know,
point, it doesn't seem necessarily to be a marketing issue in that we have enough subs, but it's to get those that we have working more, right?
more.
Is that?
Right.
what
And then
I said?
the whole budget piece with adding benefits is another piece to consider.
And just the logistics, I mean, working in insurance myself, I can't even imagine trying to offer health insurance to people that work temporarily.
I know that's what I'm thinking.
There's
Like,
some logistics.
so they take you out of a
yeah.
monthly pay period, but you don't know that they're going to come back next month. You know what I mean? Like there has to be some sort of a level of commitment in the contract that would say, I don't think you could do it month to month. I think it'd have to be a semester at a time or a year at a time, where it would be worth the while of the processing and the setting up and all of that. And then I think they'd have to do it for long enough to truly see the value of it too, to make them want to continue. I think there's lots of creative solutions, and it sounds like you have people who are kind of looking into those, and we've thrown a few random scenarios out at you too. So I think decisions can be made, and again, looking at budget and creative solutions, that there are ways we can hopefully help to address some of that. And I think it's so important. I was thinking about the training that you do, and that's so important for those people, like you said, the 28, 26% who are unemployed, who maybe have never been in a classroom. And that is so important for those people. But on the flip side, that's so important for the students that they're serving, that they get somebody who knows how to run technology, knows how to manage a classroom, because otherwise it really is a wasted day. And we, for the number of substitutes that we have, we can't afford to have wasted days in our students' academic lives. And so continuing to do those, I think, creatively, like you said, you're going to do a technology one later on. Great. Are there other, if you do a survey again, what are some other topics that those teachers would find benefit in having additional resources? Here they say on classroom behavior, so that's great. You were able to do that. So are there other things after they've gotten some of these trainings that now are maybe that next tier of, gosh, I wish I knew more about whatever. And so continuing with a couple hours here, a couple hours there can really add up and give people confidence to be able to go into a classroom maybe more often, because they feel like they have the skills and the knowledge to do so. Good job.
We will, and a lot of the information is stuff that we'll take back and process through, because it has come in quite a few different formats with a pilot program at the Rosa Parks, and then pay increases at specific areas. The recruitment obviously has been outstanding, and even just some of the feedback. I know Becky has commented that it helped her to realize we have probably enough, but how do we extend them into more days, and how do we look at that? So a lot of good pieces of information. And also a lot of training that goes on with our substitutes to make sure that they're prepared, like you said, to make it a meaningful day for our students in the classroom. Because even when you see the number of the average days gone by a teacher, it's important to make sure you fill that with somebody that can keep that going. We do have a,
As I said, I have to get to legislative items. So thank you, Becky, and thank you to Rhonda as well and your teams.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good information.
the second topic on there is the legislative update items for the 2020 legislative session, and Todd will lead us through that.
Thank you. The legislature is around the corner, and even closer to the corner is the delegate assembly of the SPSD. So we kind of use this as our guide. Those are what I passed out first is the standing resolutions. Don't change much, obviously, from year to year. Second is coming to their actual the resolutions for. Had everybody kind of looked at their area and kind of comments. We didn't have a ton of comments, but President looks at it.
Yeah, I am.
That's next Friday.
Yep.
So we had comments on just a handful of these, and then there's one of them that's kind of a good issue that most of the how to do. So we'll talk about that next a little bit more detail. So I just point you to where we had a few comments. We find B8 in the resolution. Let's get the packet.
B8.
B8.
legal and financial protection.
Yes. It's just a minor. Oh, thanks. We can't afford batteries because we're spending too much on subs.
We're saving them.
So we just have a slight change to that, and it's in or a suggested change, and it's in italics. Is where it says under the rationale, there's precedent in law related to this, where the state's attorney would represent a school district at no cost should it be sued for complying with the state statute related use of textbooks or the display of the national motto is a new one that could be added to that. Maybe not a big deal. When you're out there, if you want to suggest that change or not.
And you know, I can try to bring it up at the board
Ahead of time.
On Thursday, but it might be something she's going to have to do in Friday.
Right, and it's nothing to die. It's not a hill to die. These are all
It's
slight
already in
changes.
state statute at least too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one. Another one on B11, that alternative instruction. We would suggest not pushing that. We're kind of neutral on that. We think there should be accountability, but whether the locals should do it or the state, I think, is our question. Actually, Dr. Nold had analyzed that one. So it's more, maybe it should be the state rather than the locals should investigate that, because he knows that he's got enough to do.
We accept those in right now, and it's once we accept those in, it's automatically been classified as homeschool. So now you have that responsibility and that time used to go and investigate situations could be substantial.
So then if you go to C3, this is one we've kind of always talked a little bit about. The 2-year enrollment averaging, we used to have that for about 10 years at the state. No problem. That it helps schools that are declining. Don't disagree with the theory of that. However, when they did the major revamp, they did the half-cent sales tax and added about $60 million to local need into all the districts across the state. The small school factor went from 20% to 25%, and they funded that by trading it out for the 2-year averaging. So I would say, if we were going to push hard on that, you might have to look at that small school factor, because otherwise it's going to be coming from the pot of money that would go to everybody, including those that don't get either. And so that's why we're a little bit lukewarm on that. Then I'm going to skip over C4 because I want to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit more depth, and then go to C7. No problem with the concept on C7, but if you look in the rationale, it says, with the exception of FY 2011, 2018, and 2019, they've honored the inflation factor, which we have long argued isn't enough anyway, 3% inflation, whichever is less, but at least they've honored it. However, it wasn't 2018. It was just low that year. It was 0.07. It's 2012 where we actually went backwards 8.6% is what it is. So we just put in here swapping out 2012 for 2018 on that. Nothing controversial there, I don't think. And then if you go back to C4, that's an issue, capital outlay, where most of the education lobby's kind of been focusing its efforts. Dr. Nold attended the large school group and had quite a vigorous discussion on that. I attended a group that was pulled together by ASBSD and SASD, where we talked about it as well. And then some of the other groups are discussing it. And right now, actually, as we speak, or soon, if it hasn't already started, some of those groups are on live and on a phone call with the Secretary of Education, Ben Jones, and an individual from the governor's office is meeting to discuss different ideas that came out of these groups. And I'll just kind of talk about the one we ended up with in the group I met with last week, which is, first of all, when the capital outlay levy went from, it used to be $3 per thousand. That was the one restriction on schools. And then as part of the 2016 legislation, they
they said the $3 is still a cap, then there's going to be a new one, and it's the lesser of the two, and it's you could levy what you levied, were allowed to levy the prior year. You didn't have to levy it, but what you were allowed to levy the prior year. Then you could grow that by 3% inflation, whichever is less, plus any new construction you had in your district. So for instance, for us, that's lowered our maximum levy down to about 272, right in there. And across the state, that's different. Like Aberdeen, if you just use that, not the $3, theirs would be slightly above $3. So their new construction hasn't been overwhelming. And in other districts, it's down to 240, 230, depending on where you are. And then there's a third cap that comes in next year, and it mostly applies to small districts. There's a few big ones that have a really large tax base, but it's $2,800 per student as another cap. So it would take some of these school districts, real small ones that have 100 or 200 kids, and their levy would drop, their allowable levy would drop from maybe 270 down to 15 cents. That's how, because they have very large ag bases and they don't have a lot of kids. And so that is an issue that's facing about 70 school districts. So what has happened since 2016 with these different caps is that the cap, the prior year max plus an index factor plus new construction, that is reduced taxing authority by about $26 million since that time. And then the cap of $2,800 per student, and there is a little escape clause from that, temporary. Whereas if you had capital outlay debt prior to July 1, 2016, you could levy for that plus $2,800. And I don't know what the capital outlay debt is in those schools, so I don't know that. But I do know that it'll eventually go away. You know, if it's capital outlay certificates you can issue for 20 years. So by 2036, those will all be gone if nothing changes. And if that were all to kick in next year, that would be a savings of another $41 million. I'm not saying they're all levying it, but what they could levy. So, you know, that's $68 million potential savings in capital outlay. That's more than what the increase was to schools in the general fund that happened with that same piece of legislation. So with that in mind, schools are trying to go and kind of make a deal with the administration and what they could live with as you look at these schools. And kind of where our group ended up with is you drift down from your $3, but you would have a new floor there of $2.75. And you know, that would allow us technically to go up 3 cents, and then other schools as well. And so don't know 100% if they would be, you know, the administration would be interested in saying, yeah, we'll let some of these school districts increase their taxes. You know, that's kind of where, that's the discussion that's going on today. I'm going to try to find out tomorrow what came out of that. But that, and then for the $2,800, that was based on an average of $1,400. They just doubled it, and that was like a 2015 average, maybe even a 2014 average. The average right now is $1,800, so I think they're going to propose maybe instead of $2,800, be $3,600. It would give them much more flexibility as well there. Don't know what's become of that because it's going on right now, or it's going to start here in a couple of minutes. But trying to do something with these where we've definitely reduced the capital outlay levy in the state since that legislation passed, and maybe we can settle that on a new number going forward. One other thing, there's a few districts out there, there's about 15 that don't have any significant property valuation. So we're saying if you're below $1,400 per student, and that's 15 school districts, you could go back up to the 3, and not at the 275 or whatever that would be. So that's what they're working on, trying to come up with we can all agree, and then maybe go forward with some legislation next year. And you'll probably hear more about that, Cynthia, next Friday, where they kind of landed on that. I'll try to find out in the meantime.
And I can have some follow-up questions with you on that.
Yeah, okay. So that's kind of what we wanted to touch on. Not a huge deal here. Becky took most of our time today, but those are some of the bigger issues.
We will know more next week.
That one will be
The discussion. Exactly.
that one should be good.
That's all I had.
Any other questions for Todd or? Someone? Motion to adjourn? Oh, committee. I'm like not looking at my agenda. I better move on. Let's start with school committee.
I'll start.
Oh, thank you, Carly.
Calendar committee will be kicking off in January, just to kind of review and see where we're at. Kate, are you going to talk about policy?
I have them up if you want me to.
Perfect. And then my only other one is insurance. We had a really good meeting. We reviewed the progress that we are making so far this year in regards to claims. It's really interesting to look at kind of industry average versus where we are. We have, as you may assume, we have a very young female population. So most of our claims have to do with pregnancy. And so that's expected, and we take that into consideration. I also found it very interesting, the different things that we're always looking for new ways to promote wellness. So whether that's the number of gym sessions that our employees can attend every month, or now offering some diabetic education classes for people who are maybe identified as pre-diabetic to try to prevent them from getting to that chronic illness stage. Really looking at, they have a whole wealth of ideas, but they don't want to just throw, hey, if you do these 5 things, they really want to look at what is our population here in the Midwest and for a school district and for the people that we employ, what is the most meaningful to actually get an improvement on their health. So overall, it was a very good report as far as where we're at financially and looking at potentially being able to do some premium holidays if we continue on the same path that we're on now, which I know is always a welcome gift to our staff. So it's a good meeting.
I would just add to the insurance committee meeting that we did do the claims paid analysis that was quite thorough and in-depth. And the Hates Group had projected year to date we'd be at 9.5 million for claims, and we're at 9.2. So that means 90% or 96% of paid claims to expected claims, which that's a benefit to the members as part of the group. Yeah. The other committee that I sit on is the Education Foundation Committee. There of significance are several things, one of which is the $50,000 grant that we received from Verizon corporate, and that was in part for recognition of 5G, which is being brought to our city, which is one of the only in the country. And the $50,000 grant is to be used specifically for STEM curriculum to promote learning in science, technology, and engineering. So that is just fantastic. It is, and that overall just plays into the larger picture here, that the fundraising goal for the foundation was $165,000. The percent completed is 135%. So that really just speaks to a lot of energy and thought and intentionality that the foundation has placed on increasing the endowment, which they have $1 million goal. So the trajectory is headed in the right direction. The endowment goal for this particular year was 130,000. So the percent completed was at 97.36%. So the trajectory is heading in the direction we want it to. And just a reminder that we do have the public school crowd event this Thursday from 6 to 9 at Raven. At this point, we have $13,700 in sponsorships. That doesn't include ticket sales, but there again, the ROI on that particular event looks really good for the foundation. So, thanks.
Hi, policy. We've got 4 policies coming up for review and revision next week. Energy conservation, student transportation, private vehicles, school-owned vehicles, business and personal transportation. In there, really, most of them were a couple that didn't have any changes, and then the 2 transportation meetings we did. So maybe up for review and revision next week. PATH didn't meet last month, but some of the other ones. And calendar committee just got the schedule.
ASBSD, I'll be out in Pier next Friday for the delegate assembly. And then Chamber, we had the annual event last year. They do have a new membership coordinator, Ms. Hyden, she started. And then we should know in the next couple weeks who the new executive of the Chamber will be. We're working on that process still. Budget, we have not met. Student Leadership Council did not meet in October. We're meeting coming up this month, and affordable housing is maybe between that meeting. And mention education. Thank you.
I'll go as fast as I can. Safe and secure school. That was a fascinating meeting. The reunification exercise was successful. There's a few things that maybe can be tweaked, but overall, what a great success that was. Budget nothing. ASBSD, I'm on the board. That'll be Thursday. I'll do what I can, but then it gets dumped on the delegation on Friday. So we can see what we can do. Housing, working on getting the committee as one instead of two. So I'm helping try to put that together. Sports Authority, the marathon was down about 300 people this year. Maybe change the date to Labor Day next year to get more people involved. Still making, I believe, 22 bids to NCAA events, including a couple Division Ones. We'll see what happens. Doesn't hurt to try. We have everything that we need other than the 10 full-service hotels. And who knows what will happen in the next couple of years. I think that's all.
Thank you. Seeing nothing, a motion for adjournment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Southeast Tech next. Right at 4.
Perfect.
Thanks.